is just so, so important that people understand. Okay, so let me see if it has started. It should be starting. And so I love the fact that we're doing this in March 2020. There you go. So yay. Mm-hmm. So it does record the whole time, unfortunately, which is always funny.
Okay.
So you get a really interesting beginning, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and get started. So John Lee, I'm so excited. You have your new book launch. You have also launched all sorts of other books, which I do want to touch on in a little bit. But right now, the Secrets to a Dealionaire, this is so special because in this time, now we're in 2022. This year is an interesting year because we still are facing a lot of challenges, and people are thinking about getting into real estate investing, and they want to know how could they, with little to no money at all, get into real estate investing. And I wanted you to talk about, we're going to talk about that and all sorts of about your book. And right now, I'm going to also mention, if you're in the Clubhouse room, you can see the link at the top, free Kindle version of the book, right, from March 7th to the 11th. So today is March 5th. So you do need to make sure, remember this. We'll keep posting this up there. And if you're listening anytime on YouTube, Facebook, or if you're listening on the audio version in the podcast, you know, the link, depending on when you listen, the link may be up there and you can get a free edition of the book. But John, I'm so excited to have you because you've written so many books, but this one you decided to, come out with this revisited, The Secrets of a Dealionaire Revisited. So I want to ask you that, but let me do a compounded question. I want you to talk a little bit about the word dealionaire, like a millionaire, but a dealionaire, and what that means and how you came up with that.
Well, it just kind of came to me when I was actually, when I was talking to Robert Allen back when I wrote the first book, who wrote the foreword for this book. It was like, well, what do you do? And most people, they can't really tell you what they do. But then we just got to thinking about this. And it's like, well, I've done over 3,000 these little deals. And to me, it doesn't seem like that much because a lot of times I will do, I do 40, 50 in a week or 100 in a month. But they're little deals. I mean, it's something in fact, I just recently bought 11 properties a couple weeks ago. Now they cost a little bit more now than they used to, but I still paid $2,600. Now that's for 11 properties. So if you break that down, that's about $200 something a piece. Okay. In this day and age, a lot of people, you see these real estate things, you don't think you can necessarily do that, but you can. And what I found is one of the things I talk about more in this book is where to discover these deals. Okay. As you may know, just from talking to me a little bit, I'm a big fan of buying properties from the government. And you think, well, the government, what do they have to do with real estate? Well, they're not in the real estate business, but they have a lot to do with real estate, because if you don't take their taxes, they will find somebody that will. And that somebody might be me. And what you can pick up for back taxes is a lot less money than what the value may be of the properties. So that's how that kind of came around, because I've just done so many deals. We just kept talking about deals and deals and deals. And it's like, well, everybody talks about millionaires and billionaires, all that kind of stuff, which is all fine, and good, because that's a goal for a lot of us, because without money we can't do much these days. But with the skill, like you kind of said before, that's what I like to teach, is the skill of how to do this, because it doesn't make any difference how much it is. It's the skill set of how to do the deal. So you can take a little bit of money, and that's what I like to teach, and that's what I've touched on with this book a lot. Is I get into a lot deeper than some of my other books, is how to discover the deals for a little bit of money, then how to design them and put them into your favor, and then how to deploy them, how to find your end buyer, your customer, and it's win-win-win all the way. I win because I make the deal. The government wins because they get the properties back on the tax roll. And it could even be sometimes with a homeowners association or a property owner association. So they win. And then the customer wins because they get a property for a low amount of money that they didn't know they could actually buy for that little amount of money. So that's kind of where it came along.
Well, thank you for that overview. And I want to say that we're definitely want to go into some examples so we can talk about some specifics in there, because I'm sure that piqued the interest of some people. And I want to do my famous, yay! because we all love learning something that we can do over and over again and repeat and get success. And I think over many years of knowing you as well, I love the fact that you keep refining and tweaking and tweaking. How can you teach people how to do this as well? Because you love helping people. Yay!
Mhm.
Which I think is key. I think all of us want to help other people, but we don't always know how to. And this is something, with your background, you came from, you've done all sorts of things. You've done insurance, you've done mortgages, and then when you decided to get into real estate investing, like a lot of people, they look at real estate investing and they think, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? The banks are not always necessarily easy to get. And sometimes you can get one mortgage to do a real estate investing property, but then they start to limit on how many you can do. And there's things that are limited. And like with what you're teaching, there's no limit. The limit is you on how much time you want to put into it and what you want to do. But it's not limited by a bank or by someone else. It's really you deciding to do it. And one of the other things I want to highlight, you said is, and this is what I love to think about it, like I love also to teach people how to fish rather than just giving them a fish. And I used to always love Oli, and you're the person who we used to love to, hey, on Sirius XM, I would love to give away a property. I'm like, hey, let's give away a property. Let's do a big contest. Now, Sirius XM did not allow that. It was not allowed. And so we never could do that. But I love being able to gift people things and give people. But what I've realized is the most fulfilling thing that we can do is actually teach them how to do it themselves. And that's what's going to change their lives and really change generational wealth, because you can build wealth through real estate. You just need to decide which way you want to build it, because there's so many, and this, and I could just, even if you just looked at the simple ones of, buy, hold, and renovate, and, the buy and the hold for a long time, the buy, hold, renovate, the buy, renovate, flip, sell it right away. There are a whole bunch of, television shows about that. Or they're the ones that talk about tax liens, or they're just so many different ways. And yours is a completely different way than most people know about. It's something that you've learned over the years and made it so special, I think, because again, I know you love that phrase, KISS, keep it simple, silly.
I like kissers. Keep it simple, really simple. That's really what I like to use. Yeah. It's got to be really simple.
Yeah, really. And I think that's the thing. It's easier to duplicate when it is really simple. And when you're not trying to figure out, okay, I've tried so many different people's real estate programs over the years, and it's just been like, oh my gosh, I got lost in some of the jargon and the words that people are talking about. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like, let's put it down to where it is really, really, and with real estate, we already have, I want to say, our own language, and a lot of it comes from the legal language and then comes from Latin. And so it can be very confusing if you don't understand what you're doing. And that's why I love what you've done with this, is that it's just about keeping it super, super, super simple. And how can you do this with little money to no money? So you were sharing with me before we got on the show about, I'm really passionate about veterans and how can we help veterans. But one of the reasons I love helping veterans is because they really usually have a can-do attitude. They are, really interested in making sure you cross the finish line. And so they'll stick with things. And I love teaching them and helping veterans. So I would love if you would share this story about helping a veteran and the success that he's had.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about this before, but it's an email I just got yesterday. There's a gentleman, he's been paying me. We set up a deal. He put just a little bit of money down. Maybe I think he put $200 down. I'd have to look at the paperwork, but it was not a whole lot. It's probably just about what I paid for the property. Because that's how I structure these deals. Well, we set it up to pay $39 a month. Well, he's been paying $50 a month. He sent me an email yesterday. He's got probably a year or so left on this, because the way I set these up, it'll be, let's just say $2,500 for something I paid a couple $100 for. And then that I finance them like this because I want everybody to be the bank and I want to make it, favorable for everybody. Well, he sent me an email yesterday saying that he's a disabled veteran and what he's doing. And I had no idea he was doing this. In fact, I asked him if I could use this. And he said, yeah. So, I mean, it's really more detailed than what we can go into today. But after he gets his property paid off, he's got it figured out to buy one mini, like a cabin that he's going to do. You've seen the tiny homes and the things like that. Well, he found a place that will build these mini cabins. And after he pours the slab, he can get this done and get it on his property for $150 a month. His whole idea is to show other veterans that you don't have to be homeless. You don't have to live on welfare. You can take the $800 or so a month that he has, and this is how you do it. And you can actually own your home. You don't have to rent. You don't have to be any kind of subsistence. He's also got away with food too. He's got that down. And that's something I'll share with you later, but he's even got down how you save the pieces of the onions to regrow your own. I mean, just everything. You buy only vegetables and fruits that have seeds. I mean, he's got a whole way of doing this, which was very interesting. But that's one of the things I want to work with him on too, is how to show these, how to show veterans, how to do this, because it's so, it seems like we're all, and this is what happened to a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, and you and me included, they just kind of throw you out to the world. I mean, you can learn all this stuff, but then you got to go make it your own. That's one of the problems I've had also with some of the other trainings that I went to, and, some of the things, not that they were bad, but nobody really teaches you how to simplify it, systemize it, and monetize it. And that's one of the things I just think is so important. And so I've got this where I made my system where it's very simple, so anyone can do it. And here's what I found out too, that about a little over half the people that actually come to learn some things, to go through my workshops and things, are people that have already been investing for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And they're just looking for a way to refine what they've done, because you can take, and this is what I've done with my own rental properties, because I don't have any anymore. Mine are all sales. I've taken my own philosophies and what I do right here, my own techniques, and I applied it to my rental properties to where I don't have the the one-on-one everyday aspect of it. So that's just that's what I've done with this. And this book I'm kind of excited about, because it's taken me a long time. I started this last May, and I thought, oh, I've written 5-6 other books before. This will be easy. Well, it's, if you really do it right, and that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to make it accessible to everyone, so it's very simple. It took me this long to get it out. So here we are, and Monday is the promotion. So yeah, it's absolutely free. Get you one. And you know what I've done also is you can see the star on the front of the book. I've put in, actually it's more than this, but over $1,497 in gifts that you will get just from having the book. So if you get a Kindle copy, it's got the links on there, but we've created a web page strictly for the book with gifts on there. It's got a training that shows you exactly how to do this, a workshop. I've got lots of downloads, got some templates on there, got some marketing information, and we're constantly adding to this. In fact, we were in there yesterday, and this is going to be, if you have this link and you know about this, which you'll find out, through the book here, you'll be able to access this as we go along without ever spending a penny, because that's part of the deal of sharing and teaching people this. And that's right. The idea behind it.
Well, and I love what you said earlier. I didn't want to interrupt you, but you said systematized. And I think, again, we both have been through so many trainings, and I love learning, and I'm always constantly looking to learn again. But so often, as you said, we get thrown to the wolves, because after you finish, you're like, so how do I go out into the world and apply this? And if you have a system that you can just follow, it's like following in someone else's footsteps. If there's a system there, then it's actually duplicatable and you can do it. And that's the thing. And also the fact that you are so passionate about making it simple. I think so often I have observed, let me not say, this is not something I want to say negative about others, other than I have observed that so often someone can make it complicated, maybe because they're trying to make it seem more important. And I could be wrong about that, but if nothing else, there's a gift to learning to teach and to really learn to make it as simple that someone could actually follow it. It really, I think that the Native American Indians have a saying about you don't really know something until you can teach it to someone else, and that someone else can actually do it. Not that it's that you teach it and that person, then the mentor or mentee will actually be able to do something with it. And I think that that's, for you, I know you have students that you have in your, I want to say your group, your clan, people call it, your sphere of influence. You've really worked hard on making sure that people can implement it, and then finding out what goes wrong when they're not implementing it. And that's really, really important. Anyway, I digress. So let's talk about the Secrets of a Dealionaire. You started this because you were trying to figure out how can you take a small amount of money or no money and make a deal. So let's run through a deal on how you find, and one of the things I love is in the first chapter, you talk about, and I love that you've named it the non-wanters, the people who no longer want their real estate. And that sounds like the most absurd thing in the world. What do you mean they have real estate and they no longer want it? And there are just so many amazing stories around this, but there are definitely people who are tired of owning real estate. We used to call them the lazy landlords, or, just people who got retired and now they're not interested in that kind of passive income. Maybe they've decided that instead of being in real estate and having passive rental properties as passive income, they would like to have passive income from annuities or something where they don't have to worry at all. And so first of all, define the non-wanters, and then talk a little bit about how you find them.
Well, the way I originally found them is by the government, like we talked about before. The government has, most of us have heard of the tax sale auctions. If you don't pay your taxes, that would be a non-wanter. Government will take it over, then they'll put it up for sale for an auction. Well, what I found, and this is kind of what I show people what to do, and this is the best way to start. You can go to auctions if you want. I've never been to a tax sale auction. I've been to other auctions just for fun to watch them, but I don't want any competition. I just want to take, and then you have a redemption period. There's all kinds of things and more complications that go with that kind of stuff. Well, what happens in a lot of the counties is if they do not sell at the tax sale, the county takes them over. They're the trustee. Okay, then they're stuck with this property. There's nothing going on. Well, about half the counties around will sell you the properties and what I call over the counter, OTC. That means that you can just go buy them. There's no redemption period. You will get your deed right away as soon as you pay for them. And that's what I found. There's more that goes into the backstory than that, but that's really how it is. And that's how I can show you pretty simply is how to find these. You take those properties and that's what you can get for a couple $100. Those are from non-wanters, because a lot of people, they'll have a property, they don't know what the heck to do with it. Okay. And after so many years, depending on your jurisdiction, after so many years or 1 year or several years, that's when the county will take them back over of you not paying taxes. Well, in the meantime, the person is getting the bills. It's aggravation. Every time you get a bill that's not paid, as I've known in the past, it's been very devastating sometimes when you get a bill, because that's constantly on your mind. Well, tax bills are no exception. And that's another technique I've learned along the way too, is to get a hold of the people before they get to the tax sale. But that's another whole story. That gets into some of the free properties. But just I like to buy something though over the counter from the government directly, and that's the best way to get started, buying the properties from non-wanters, because the government is a non-wanter too. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, and let's talk about a little bit about that, because non-wanters, like the government is not in the business of owning property. They don't really want to own property. They just want the money for all of their budgets, right?
Yes, absolutely. They're in the money business. That's
so
exactly
you're solving a problem for them, which I think, you alluded to in the beginning, and I wanted to highlight the win-win-win scenario, and the fact that it is really important to be solving a problem for someone else, so that you're creating a win for them, but then also creating a win for yourself. And then as you go on, which I want to talk more about what you do with the property afterwards, but talk about, so you over the counter, is a phrase that I think a lot of people don't know. So how would someone discover if there is over the counter in their county in the United States, wherever they are?
The simplest way to do it is just look up you call them. Okay. You can find some stuff online, and in this virtual world we live in, a lot of people like to do that. You're better off picking up the phone and calling them. Okay. You call the collector or the treasurer, depending on how they have it in your area. Okay. They may refer you to somebody else, but there's always a trustee in every county that actually controls the properties, whether they set up the tax sale auctions or they have them over the counter. The ones you look for is over the counter, and simply ask them, do you have any properties that did not sell at the last tax sale that you can sell over the counter? It's that simple. And can you give me, can you give me a list? I have one on the workshop we did not too long ago. I got a sharp workshop on that, that I show you that we did here. And it just shows you, it goes right down the steps to do this. You call them up and you ask them. I picked out a county I didn't even know to do for this workshop. I did just to see if it still works the way I've always done it. Because here's what happens. Once you get involved with a couple counties, this is what happened to me. I was overwhelmed and I thought I was going to go to all 115 counties in Missouri and then branch out to everywhere and keep going. Well, I got into about 5 or 6 counties. There's so much inventory. I kind of got stuck there. Okay. So you just simply ask them though and get a list. And they sent me a list, and there was almost 1,000 properties I could buy for $100 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you have to do a little bit more due diligence. I mean, I get into a lot more details, but just simply what I did is I found out where they were, called the community, and got a list of their rules or regulations, see what I can and can't do. And then, the property's right there. And then that's kind of the design phase. Then what you do is you put them up for sale. You either sell them for a cash price. I usually give somebody a cash price or a financing price. And I have kind of a unique way I do that with 0% interest. And it's just the amount I charge. And then that goes on. You take a few $100s, it turns into years. I mean, as far as an income goes. So you can either get your short-term gain or you can get your long-term income. And I say I prefer both is what I like to do.
And I think it's so special because again, what you're doing is so simple. And like you just said, if you just call, and it's so interesting. Just the other day, I observed there was, I used to tease about, if you see a bunch of teenagers, so often they're sitting, they may be sitting at a table and all of them have their head down looking at their phone and even text messaging each other instead of actually talking to each other. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And now I've seen, as the years have gone on, that adults will sit at a table at dinner or something and do the same thing and start to email and text message. And I'm like, what happened to the person who's right in front of you? So I'm gonna stress that don't overlook what again seems like so ridiculously simple right now by picking up the phone and actually calling in and finding out, are there over the counter, sales, and could I get that list? And yes, a lot of things are online, but I will say that so often it's very confusing. And in fact, I'll give a quick example. I was looking at a county in Florida for properties, and it was so interesting. I was doing a different strategy than yours, but it was very similar in the fact that I was just like, you know what? And also for me, I come from a weird, I don't know if it's just that I don't like to bother people. I don't want to be the pain. And I worked for government, and so I know how many phone calls you can get. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. So I always want to I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to be a bother. So I'll go online and I'll try to figure everything out. And I was looking at this county in Florida, and I was trying to find the actual piece of land. And I was looking at it, and it was so funny because what I found is that how they list it on different parts of the government website, as you're kind of following the pattern of, did it sell at a tax sale or what's going on with it? Oh my gosh, they inverse and change the numbers of the way that the land is numbered. Sometimes it's numbered one way. Sometimes they have a different, prefix to it. Sometimes it was amazing. And until I picked up the phone and actually talked to somebody, I was just completely lost, which I hate to say. One of the other things that I have observed as well, not only for myself, but for others, and even my students say the same thing, is once they get confused, a confused mind doesn't make a decision. They stop action. So you stop doing whatever it was that was going to help you, whether it was real estate investing or whatever you want to do. So first thing I would say is always when you have a confusion, ask questions. And at that point, let me tell you, so share a little bit about, I know you also teach classes and you help people kind of get through things. I know they can get the book, but you also do online classes. Will you share a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. The program we have, which we developed about a year ago, I guess now, and we've only done it with a couple of small groups. I call it the Ultimate Freedom, and what it actually does is shows you how to do these 3 steps. Okay, it shows you where to discover these properties for little or no money. It shows you how to design the deals in your favor and in everybody's favor. Because like we've talked about, you win. I mean, if the deal everybody isn't happy, I'm not going to do it anyway because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm not gonna try to force anybody. We're not trying to do anything like that. And then the third thing is to deploy the deals. Okay, you've got to be able to sell them too. Yeah. And there's different techniques and different ways you do it. One of the things I've found is some of this the hard way. I mean, I've done a lot of this and I've been refining it, as you know, for many years. And you got to get your stuff down. It's just, they say don't judge a book by its cover. Well, that's the first way people judge it is by the cover. Okay. Same thing with your ads that you write. You have to have a headline that sells, because if you don't have a good headline, nobody's going to open it. We live in a skim world now. We're skimming through the ads. We're skimming through everything. I was just reading a thing the other day, just even on emails, and I write like an old time writer. I'll make paragraphs. You don't do that anymore. You make 1 or 2 sentences, they put a space, and you go right down so you can skim it. And my wife and I were talking about that last night because I got 2 different emails from somebody. I said, "Oh, look at this. Here's the one that's good skimmability, and this one isn't, even though I like the information better in the one that they consider isn't." Well, we don't have enough time these days, and our attention spans are short, and there's a million different things coming after us for our attention. So it's got to catch that right away. So that's just kind of how I kind of show you when we're deploying these, how to do it. In fact, I have one of the downloads that I give to you with this book here is 1,275 real estate headlines that sell. I put this together. Yeah. And you're welcome to have it. In fact, if anybody wants to send me, a message on the side, I'd be happy to send you just that part, but better yet, just get your own copy of the book and it's got all that stuff in there. But that's one of the things I found is the first thing you got to do in writing an ad, because you can put everything, write the best ad in the world, but if they don't open it, what good does it do? None.
Right. And I've learned that as well over the years. It's the same thing. And it's the same thing with titles for podcasts. It's the same thing when you're advertising anything, is you want something. But again, we are, people, and I do the same thing. You kind of skim through things. And if it doesn't catch my attention right away, I'm just keep on going. I've got things to go, things to do, places to go. And you just get busy. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit more about, and if anybody's interested, while you guys are the special ones, if you're in Clubhouse and you want to raise your hand, feel free to raise your hand and we'll talk more about this. But so let's talk about, so you talk to a county and you find out, you get this list. And after you get the list, then talk a little bit about how simple this is, because you have all sorts of money coming in from structuring these deals, but you get this list and then you contact, so let's talk about 2 things. One, I want to talk about the eBay strategy, which you talk about in the book. So we're going to kind of breeze through this really fast. But again, the book is free on Kindle from March 7th to the 11th. Feel free. The link is at the top in the Clubhouse. And also we'll make sure that it's in YouTube and Facebook and all the other places that we put it up there. But so talk a little bit about when you get the property and the eBay strategy. I want to talk about, there's other strategies, but I get so excited. I want you to talk about them all at once, but let's just talk about the eBay strategy, because I think often people overlook eBay, especially for real estate.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess best way to explain this is how it actually started. Many years ago, I was and I still am, an amateur coin collector. And back in the days of dial-up, you would there was a lot of the bandwidths were small, so there was a lot of competition for the bandwidths, and you get kicked off a lot. Well, back then downloading a picture could take a couple of minutes. So what I ended up doing is I'd get on the computer late at night, 2 or 3, 4 in the morning, and that way I didn't have any competition. I didn't have nobody bother me or anything like that. It was another reason. I still do a lot of stuff in the middle of the night, but I got on there, and one night I just I was a mortgage broker at the time, and I just happened to find a guy that was selling these properties down in Arkansas. Okay. And they would sell anywhere from, $500 to a couple $1,000s. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm making maybe $25 on a coin here. And I think that's pretty good, or $50 or whatever. I said, what if I could just buy a property for 500 and sell for 1,000? That'd be a lot better. So I contacted the guy. First I bid a couple of times on his auctions, and I always would get outbid at the end. I don't know if you know anything about eBay, but a lot of people sit there, watch it, wait till the end, and outbid you by like $5 or $10 or whatever the case may be. Well, that happened to me several times. So I contacted the guy and I said, well, do you have any properties I can and they were down in Arkansas. He lived in North Carolina. And I said, is there anything I could just buy from you outright? And he sent me a list of maybe 10 properties. And so I went down and looked at them. They were like 1,000 to 1,500 a piece is what he had on a fixed price. I didn't buy anything, but what I discovered while I was down there is the state of Arkansas, they have a program where they will sell the properties over the counter that people did not sell at the last tax sale. And so I got a list from them. Well, I made several trips down to Arkansas. I never bought anything though. And that's one of the things that I recommend getting the game. Even if you lose a couple $100, you can make that most of the time tax deductible. Because I didn't do that. My trips would have been mostly tax deductible, but I didn't do that. But I did find them closer to my home, and I found a bunch of them. So I bought my first couple of properties, and I put them up for sale on eBay. And they sold right away. I made like $4,400, within a month, within a couple of weeks, because I was kind of scared on how to do this. So I said, well, if that works, I'll try it again. And I did that for many years. I'd sell 10, 15 properties a week. I mean, I was buying them. I actually exhausted a couple of the counties that I worked at. I mean, hundreds and hundreds. In fact, one county alone out west, I bought and sold over 1,800 properties there, and several of them, several hundred. What I do now is a little bit different, though. I give people a choice, because back then I was all about, let's get quick money, and I got to do it now. I mean, that's just the way everything was working. Nowadays, I look at something for longer term. I'd rather have the $50 a month. I'd rather have the $69 a month, because I normally get my money up front for what they want to put, their initial investment, the amount they put down. And then the way I structure them, it'll go on for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, 11 years. I got one deal that I did not too long ago. It's going on for 22 years. I might not even be here. The world might not be here in 22 years. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference. But the eBay strategy is a good one to do. And you'll get other things out of that too, that you don't normally get, with some of the other platforms that are available.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to realize that there are so many different platforms, and that you can use the one that you like. And a lot of times I would say I think it's really important to master one, get to know it first. Don't get overwhelmed by trying to do all of the different platforms or even all of the different strategies. Just pick one and really master that. I guess there's that old saying, you probably know it, by what is it? That martial artist. Oh my gosh. I'm totally blanking on his name right now. Oh, Bruce Lee. Come on. He's related to you, right?
Right.
Bruce Lee. So what he said, I'm not afraid of the man who practices 1,000 different moves. I'm afraid of the man who practices one move 1,000 times.
Yes. Very, very, that's critical right there, what you just said. Yeah. In fact, I use that quote quite a bit, because he is one of my distant cousins and relatives. And that's what it did. What I did back then. I didn't know what I was doing actually back then. It just kind of evolved out of this, but I call it the cookie cutter approach. Do something that works, do it again. Now do 10 of them that work. Okay. Do 100 of them that work. Okay. Now do 500 that work. I mean, whatever it is for you. And one of the things that I've really stressed on this book is to make it simple, so I can transfer this over to you, because these are techniques. These are not some special talent or anything I was, born with, or anything like that. This is just something, that I just kind of simplified it and showed, and so I can show people how to do this. And that's the other thing that you just kind of talked about, Jennifer, is it's so easy to learn all this stuff and then want to do it all at once. And you can't implement everything at once. Just pick one thing. And that, we get into that a lot deeper into some of the workshops and things, but just make one little strategy. Just go out and do one deal, because that's where you're going to learn everything, is by doing the deal. And then you can scale them up to your bigger deals. I mean, the techniques we use, you can do, for a couple $100 and a couple $1,000, you can do the same things with hundreds of thousands of dollars of deals, because it's just making the deal and making it favorable for everybody. So that's just how I put it together.
And one of the things I wanted to expand on a little bit, which I think will be really helpful for the audience and for you, if you're listening right now and you've thought about all the chaos that's happened because of the pandemic, people who've lost jobs, unemployment, all sorts of things. And I want to say, John also talks about this being the sudden storms of life, the unexpected storms that can happen in life. And this includes death, divorce, but disasters of all types. And honestly, the pandemic has also caused a lot of disasters and in people's private personal lives, and how do you get to the point where that's no longer a problem for you? And a lot of times that $300 or $400 extra a month could really be life-changing for someone. But let's talk about, with those kind of people, they are the non-wanters. As we started talking about the non-wanters at the top of the episode, it's really important to realize that non-wanters are just the people that something has happened and changed in their lives, and so they no longer want to own that real estate. And those people, again, this is a different than just over the counter, but talk about those storms of life and how that can turn into a wonderful win-win-win scenario.
Well, and you mentioned the pandemic. I tell you, I did not know what was going to happen when this first happened. And one of the first things I noticed is most of the people who were buying the properties from me, they either started trying to pay them off early or paying more per month. And so I didn't really know where this was going. And the other thing that I've noticed with what's gone on the last couple of years is it has created a lot of non-wanters. Many people have lost their jobs. That's one of the many ways people do it. I mean, you talk about that, was it the 3Ds or whatever, disaster, divorce, there's just all kinds, there is all kinds of stuff that happen. People get transferred. Well, people have lost their jobs. That's created a lot more non-wanters, so you can find more of these properties over the counter or in different ways that we do it. But it's also created more wanters. Okay. On the other hand, because now in fact, I get people every day. One reason I went at, because I wasn't actively looking to do anything more right now as far as with my properties, but I just can't help myself because people are coming to me and they want to buy something. They might want to buy something out of town or in a lake community or just, somewhere in the outskirts. Well, all these opportunities are created now from the non-wanters not wanting them. And it does help them too, because it gets the stress, off of them for not, for getting the bill, but also the wanters now coming, they're able to get a piece of property that doesn't cost them very much. I'm real big on keeping stuff under $100. And I'll tell you why I do that too, per month, that is, because I've had several rental properties over the years, and that's another story for another time. But, let's say you're making $500 a month cash flow. Well, that's great until the renter moves out or something happens. You've got, oh gosh, there's so many different things. Somebody moves out, let's say, and I've had this happen. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in, there's thieves everywhere. There's stuff going on. They'll rip the copper out. They might, and these could be really nice homes. Well, it might cost you $10,000-$20,000 sometimes to fix the house back up. I've had that done, personal experience there. Well, that $500 a month, how many years does it take you to make your money back? Now you're hoping on appreciation and stuff, but I've also had certain neighborhoods that still have not come back from 10, 15 years ago. I mean, you hear a lot of people talking about their BRRRR method to buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat or whatever. And that's great. I did that back before I knew they had a strategy name for it. And I knew other people did 30 years ago. Well, I got stuck with a couple properties that I'm still, they're just now coming back where I could probably break it even on them. So you got to do something in the meantime. If you have one of those sudden storms where something happens to your property, that's a big deal. Well, for me, keeping my my things down. I'd much rather have 5 properties that are paying me $69 a month than one rental property. And I hate to say it, but one that's going to pay me $500 a month, because I can have all this other stuff happen. There's absolutely no maintenance whatsoever. And in fact, one of my students that I like to use for example, her name's Mary Ann. She's in her mid 70s, and she's what I call a tired landlord. Okay. She's been a landlord for many years. She got into rental properties because that was going to supplement her retirement, with her pension and all this, and everything's going good. Well, she's busy and can't do anything. She took our course here. And just after the first couple of workshops, she went out and bought a property for $105 and sold it for $2,892 within about a week, less than 2 weeks. And she says, well, I just did this. And she goes, I didn't have to go out and do anything. I could actually sit here while my grandkids were playing outside. It took me a couple hours to put all this together. And so now that's what she's doing and focusing on more is that. And that's the kind of simple stuff that you can do with it. Because a lot of people say, well, yeah, that's good for you because you've done it all these years. But what about me? Well, Mary Ann's a great example right there. And, and people as you know, Jennifer, we talked about this before, passive income. And what I've come to believe over the years is there's really no such thing as passive income, because you always got to do something. Back when I met a guy one time that had 500 rental properties. And I said, I want to be like him. So I started accumulating rental properties, and I got up to about 36 properties. In fact, that's exactly what my maximum I had as rentals. And about half of them were done with a management company, and half of them I did myself. And you think, well, you turn them over to a management company and that'll take care of it. And they take care of everything. Well, they do, but you still have decisions to make. You still have things come up. There's still empty things happen. There's still bigger repairs than you count on. There's just so many things. It's not passive. It's completely not passive. You don't go on vacation and just forget about it. This here, I go on vacation, I forget about it. If I got something to do, when I have my sudden storms, my father, as you know, passed away a couple months ago. And there was a couple of weeks when I didn't, if I would have had rental properties, that would have been a nightmare for me, but I could still take care of everything I'm doing right here. My money still comes in. And even though the receipts I didn't maybe send out, I did, because I don't take much time off, but I could sit there and let them, they could have sat there for a week if they needed to, and nothing would have happened. If you get a call from a tenant or even from your management company, you can't wait till a couple of days to answer it. You just can't do it. You got to do it right now. So that's just some of the things that we've refined over the years with this.
And I guess one of the things I wanted to highlight, because I don't know if it's clear for everyone who might be listening, if you're listening to this, one of the things is that John specializes in land. So he's talking about why it's not, you're not talking about a house with tenants or an apartment building or a commercial building or commercial tenant, which again, as you know, with 2020, when the pandemic first started and so many restaurants were closed, and now we've had them opened, closed, open, closed, open, closed. And unfortunately, and then with social distancing and all of the rules and such, even in Washington, D.C., I have seen business after business go out of business and no longer be able to afford, obviously, rent. So how many months were they unable to pay the rent? And if you're a commercial landlord, that became very, very hard because, again, the banks were not so understanding, especially for commercial investors. If you're a homeowner, there was different ways that mortgages, if they were Fannie or Freddie back, that you were allowed to not pay your mortgage for months and months and months. However, for commercial or even for investors, it was a very different situation. And so, again, as we just talked about, the unexpected storms of life and how they can affect your real estate investing. So number one is using a strategy of land as your investment, but also doing things by these strategies. They're so simple. Again, really from zero money to, because I know you have stories. Actually, I know one of them that I love for you to share about where people all of a sudden go, oh, you want that land? And then they just like, here, do you want some more? Let me give you land. So if you'll share one of those stories, because I know it sounds so ridiculous and unrealistic and quite frankly, just unbelievable. But if you give a specific example, a lot of times it's easier to understand because you understand that everything that's surrounding the situation, why someone would just give you land that again you can resell and make a bunch of money on.
Hmm. Well, there's so many of them, but I had a multi-million dollar investor a few years ago, and he gave me several homes that I didn't even count on. What happened was I was sending letters out, because this is one of the strategies I've kind of learned is I just send letters out to people that are just about to come up on their tax sales before they get there. And I got this I send them, there's different ways I do it. And I don't want to get too complicated because I want to keep everything as simple as possible, but I sent a deed out with the letter. I got these letters I've refined over the years, just a couple of pages. I have a couple of paragraphs. Okay. They're not very long. And I sent this letter out to him, and he had called me back and left a message. I had no idea, because at the time I was running many ads, and I got messages, and it took me a couple of days to call him back. Well, I finally called him back because all he says left his name and number. And he says, "Hi, John." And he goes, I got this letter from you, and this deed, it says that if I just get this notarized, you'll take this property off of my hands. And I said, "Well, yeah, sure I will." If that's what it said. I didn't know, because I had a list of properties that I sent out to. And he says, "Okay." He goes, "Well, how many of these properties do you want?" And I said, "Well, how many of them do you have?" And he says, "Well, I got 9 of them I'll give you right now." I said, "Okay." He goes, "If you give me the deeds," he goes, "here's the list of them. You go look those up and get these deeds prepared for me." He goes, "I'll get them notarized and send them to you." So I did. I looked him up. He gave me a list, and sure enough, this is a multi-million dollar investor. And these are not great houses. These are houses, not land. Land is what we were kind of talking about, which I think everybody should start off with. But these houses, he gave me 9 of them. Well, I ended up taking 7 of them. There was 2 of them one of them was demolished when I went by to take a picture of it. The county had already been there, and it was in such bad shape. And one of them, there was another problem with another one. But 7 of them I sold it. Of course, I didn't sell them for a lot of money, but I sold them for a couple $1,000s up to $10,000 or so. But it was okay. It was all free money for me. The only cost I had was preparing the deeds, which didn't cost me anything, because I did them on my computer, and I emailed them to him. He printed them out and got them notarized and overnighted them back to me. So I didn't even do that. The only thing I had to pay for was the recording fees. And so I sold these, and that's just, it's just unbelievable. I'm like, why would a multi-million dollar investor give me properties for free? Well, they had a sudden storm. And here's what happens with a lot of investors around. They get these groups together, and they got more money. I don't want to say more money than brains, but more money than due diligence. Let's put it that way. Because
more money than time, I think, as well, because it's time. I hate to say, we all have this like finite amount of time. And so often when we're those A personalities who are so, intent on doing whatever, we think we can stretch time even more. And so anyway, so we don't have to say stupidity. It's a lot of times it really is just the fact that due diligence is the fact that they didn't have the time to do what they needed to. And so I'm sorry, please continue.
No, that's just, it was a group though of investors, and they pooled their money. And what they do, and this goes on today. I see this today. People invest in maybe the St. Louis area or surrounding area from somewhere else. But unless you really know some of the neighborhoods, there's some neighborhoods that are more favorable than others to put your money into. And these houses that this guy had given to me, they were not in the greatest neighborhoods, but I don't care about neighborhoods, because somebody wants to live everywhere, which I've discovered. And some of the most money you'll make is in some of maybe what other people say the least favorable neighborhoods that may not, you may not want to live there, but somebody does. They might, for different reasons, which we won't really get into, but some of these houses, I mean, they've already had the copper stripped out of them and things like that. That's why I would sell them for a couple $1,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 or whatever. In fact, one of the houses I went by, Jennifer, I didn't even get out of my truck to take the picture. I drove by and I was clicking it because the neighbor next door, the police were dragging somebody out with their guns drawn in the front yard, holding this guy down. And so, Yeah, and then I put that one up for sale, and in fact, when people were, I said, you can just go by and take a look at it, and they're like, can I get in? I said, yeah, this one, because some of them I put a lockbox on. This one, I said, no, the windows were kicked in. Wasn't in the greatest neighborhood. I said, yeah, go ahead, you can go in there and look, But that one, it actually sold pretty good. And when I talked to the guy later, it was actually kind of an interesting situation, because the guy that bought that he's from New York City, and he runs a ministry here between New York and St. Louis. He helps people getting out of prison and off of drugs, and has some programs. And he thought that was the greatest. In fact, he calls me every once in a while, see if I got anything more, because he was able to do that. And he uses some of the people that couldn't get a job, that are coming out on parole or probation or whatever, and they're actually the laborers for his stuff. So he's got a great system going, and it's just, but it just gives the point is, you can get some of these from the non-oneers, but people didn't do their due diligence, but there's money to be made, and there's ways to win on every one of these deals here.
And I guess that's part of it is, so I'll go back to what I said earlier, and the fact that it's really important. And I know that you've done this, especially with this new book that you're putting out now, is we're always looking for the simplest way to do it. But also I suggest that you start with one. Right. Because, John has a lot of strategies, and then there's even past John and even me and so many of the real estate investors who like to teach. There's so many different ways. And that's so funny. That's usually the first question I ask somebody when they come to me and say, oh my gosh, I want to be a real estate investor. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you like? What do you like about real estate investing? And what is it that you particularly want to do? Because remember the old saying, and I know you and I both have heard this a million times, is do something in life that you really enjoy. And life will never be work. None of it will be work. It will really be joyful. And one of the things that I think you do that I really admire is that you love helping people. You love making sure that you're creating a win-win-win. And you can do that with any kind of real estate. You just need to decide that is the most important part. And then you go forward from there, and you can do it. Especially, I think one of the things that gets overlooked a lot is land, and thinking, well, how can who wants to buy land? But think about it, there is always someone, just like you said, in every neighborhood, there's always someone, and often out of sight, out of mind, if they've never even thought about, oh, what do you mean that land it's a mile from the water? Well, that sounds like a great idea, so not everybody, they don't even know what they don't know. So give them the benefit of the doubt and allow them to make decisions. Okay, I'm going to take a look real quick. You guys, if there's any questions, I don't see any hands raised. So I'm going to continue for the last 10 minutes. But feel free, if anybody changes their mind, they want to raise your hand and ask questions for John Lee, we can do that. Otherwise, we're going to keep on going. John, one of the things about this book, we talked about this book, it's special because you put all these links in it. So number one, if you are listening during this time, March 7th through the 11th, you can get a free Kindle version of this. Otherwise, you just go to Amazon, and in the Kindle edition, you have all of these links. So talk about some of the bonuses and the gifts that people get if they go and get this book.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to do because I've taken a lot of trainings myself. I spent a few $100,000, which I don't even want to add it up anymore. We used to joke that I've spent over $100,000 on trainings, not counting my travel. That was back in 2010. Since then, I don't know what all we've done, but my wife and I, we've traveled all over the place, and we spent a lot of money, and I don't regret any of it. But one of the things
that's how you and I met, was at a training, 10, 15 years ago now. So I'm the same way. I'm so grateful that I've gone and I've spent all that money on all those trainings. We've done some high level trainings together. And so I just want to say, I am so grateful to you, John. I love just watching how you keep growing and how many people you help. I love listening to your testimonials and reading it. So I just want to say that. I want to quickly say that before I forget. Thank you for all that you do to help people throughout the world. And thank you for taking the time, because I know what it takes, the discipline to write another book. Thank you for that. And I'm sorry, please continue with your gifts.
Well, thank you for your kind words, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Yeah, one of the things though that I've noticed is a lot of people, they give you a little bit, but not give you everything. I wanted to make this to where all you really need is the book. Now, of course, you put the time in, and as you know, sometimes you learn more. At least I do learn more from going to the workshops and learning from the people that's actually done it. And the other thing is with the links, I wanted to show you stuff that I have done, I'm doing, and I continue to do. And like you said, I continue to evolve. And that's one reason I put the links in here, because this page that I created, this is going to, and you need to know this, it's not just, out there for the general public, but if you have a copy of the book, or if you have access to it, you'll be able to find this. But I wanted to give you stuff that I'm actually doing. I wanted to show you what, the techniques that I use, and not just stuff based on theories, because so many of the people out there, and I know you've been to these too, Jennifer, and a lot of people have, you go to these great workshops, but then you find out later the people have never really done what they're teaching. Okay. Well, that makes all the difference to me, because I want to learn from somebody that does what they, I want to learn from what they're doing, what they've done. And just like with Robert Allen, my original, who wrote the foreword for this book, he wrote the original book, Nothing Down. Well, back when I started, way before I met him, that was something, I could relate to that, because that's about what I had to work with. I had about nothing down. And most people getting into this, even if you have some money to put away. In fact, we had somebody at one of our groups a couple of weeks ago say, she just got $10,000 from somebody, and she goes, "What? I want to invest in real estate." And I said, "Well," and like you said before, I was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And she's like, "Well, I want to invest in real estate." I said, "Okay, let's back up. What is your vision?" That's the question I start with now. What is your vision? And then just here, because everybody has a different idea. And well, what she said is, she goes, "Well, I don't want to do the single family homes like my mom did. She got stuck with one she inherited a house and had bad renters and da, da, da. I want to do," and she went down that line, which, things happen, and non-winners, and so she says, "I want to invest in apartment buildings." I said, "Okay, great." So I gave her some information on that. I said, "That's not really what I do, because I personally like dealing with people one-on-one, and with land and little deals. And my houses, all my single family houses, and even my multifamilies now, are all done on the same techniques that I do right here." But that's something, it's like, well, what's your vision? So that's what she said. So I sent her on that way to get into apartment buildings. Learn all you can before you spend your $10,000. And that's what I like to show you here. Just take a couple $100, take $300, take a few $100s, and turn it into just a monthly income. You might only get $39 a month. I've got a lot of them like that. Those are great. I don't mind those. And today it's so easy. When I first started doing this, Jennifer, it was all what we called mailbox money back then. This checks and money orders coming in the mail. Now you got, of course, in fact, I just had my 24th anniversary with PayPal last Tuesday. So yeah, which was kind of interesting. I've been there with them since 1998. And that's how long I've had my business account with PayPal. But there's so many ways. You got Zelle, you got Pop Money, you got, there's just a million different ways that you can collect money now. So it's a lot easier. I actually have buyers in 48 states and 16 countries around the world that have bought these little pieces of property from me, little pieces of land. And I used to wonder, I'm thinking, why would somebody in New York City living in an apartment, paying $2,800 a month for their small apartment, buy a property from me for $49 a month? And it's like, well, and it used to bug me. I used to almost stay up night trying to think about, why would somebody do this? Look at this. This is nothing. They could, and what it is, I guess, is they want to be like a property owner. There's some kind of status about owning something. It doesn't matter. And you could even call yourself an investor, because you are. And part of the marketing that I use is you can invest, you can enjoy this now or invest for later. And people have a combination of both, because many people, like the veteran we kind of talked about earlier, he started doing this a couple of years ago for his future, but he's doing it right now at $39 a month. And then he's got a plan for his little mini cabin that he's going to build. So, I mean, it's just a strategy that I just found that it really helps a lot of people. So that's why I continue doing this and refine it exactly like we're doing. But the links, I've got gold setting links. I've got the 1,275 headlines that sell. I've got owner financing, one we just did a few weeks ago, an owner financing mini workshop. I mean, I've got a lot of things showing the strategies, and you can take these and you can apply them to bigger deals. Because if you might, in fact, a lot, and like I said earlier, about half the students that come to me, they've been in the business for a lot of them for longer than I have. I
Yeah.
have people who've been there a lot longer than I have that come, but they want to learn the strategies and simplify what they're doing. So
Yeah.
that's, there's a lot of links in here though. I say to $1,497 is probably a lot more than that if you really added them up.
Yeah, it's thousands of dollars of just free stuff. And then it's free on Kindle. So if you happen to be in this March 7th to 11th window, you can go get your free version on Kindle and get those free links. Otherwise, just go to Amazon and you can get a copy of the book. Is it up now? Or
It is up now. Yes. The
Okay,
promotion
good.
starts with KDP Kindle on Monday.
Okay, good. So you can go to Amazon and go get a copy of it, Secrets of a Dillionaire. And this is the revisited version. There was an original one he wrote years ago. And John Lee has written lots of other books. You can see, and I mean, we could go on and on. Fred is one of my favorite ones, Failed Real Estate Deals. Fred, which we've talked about before. But anyway, I know we're almost out of time. I want to go ahead and, John, I'm going to just say, one of the things I'm famous for is I always want to find the silver lining and find the yay in today. So as we go off the air, I just want to, ask you to lift your voice and let's say yay as we celebrate. Everyone is going to be a winner in real estate investing, whether we start with small little deals. And I hope everyone gets Secrets of a Dillionaire Revisited by John Lee. So we raise your voice. 3, 2, 1. Yay!
Yay! Thank you, Jennifer.
It's always a pleasure. So I'm going to close the room, you guys, in Clubhouse. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week, next Saturday, same time, same channel. Bye-bye, you guys. So we're off of there, and let me go ahead and end.